Alright, I am back with another video, and I must admit, I have a bit of an addiction. Ever since Elden Ring Nightreign came out, it has soaked up every little bit of free time that I've had, to the point where it's really the only game I've played outside of this one. I kinda had to do a build on it eventually, right? I've made builds based on the original Elden Ring in the past, that being one about Godfrey and one about Renala from the DLC, and I really enjoyed making those builds. But when I started playing Elden Ring and seeing how it had very specific laid out, or Nightreign I should say, and it had very specific laid out abilities for each of its characters, I thought, could I actually recreate these in Baldur's Gate 3? Turns out, you can. Today we're going to be building the Duchess, one of the main characters from the game, one of the 8 playable ones, and my personal favourite, the one that I use the most. And well, let's just say this build turned out way better than I expected, so let me lay out exactly what the goals of the build are. The Duchess is amazing at dexterity and intelligence-based things. In Elden Ring, that means she can cast your kind of standard magic, sorceries in that game very, very well, and she's exceptionally good with daggers, so this is going to be a dagger magic build. Okay, cool. Her more specific abilities, though, are tied to, well, stealth and time manipulation, oddly enough. She has an ability called Retake, where any damage that she does to an enemy within the past 3 seconds can be repeated after activating the ability. Almost and like an echo of the character of the enemy that you're attacking, kind of goes back in time to be hit again. It's a very interesting ability. So, one of the goals of this build is to somehow apply the damage that we're dealing twice in a single attack. You know what? It's possible, and I managed to figure it out. The second thing, her ultimate ability, makes her whole team invisible for a short period of time to remove enemy aggro and allow for healing, setups, buffs, or to be able to attack without being noticed, so the enemy will swing wildly instead of aiming specifically for you. Which, of course, means we can now make this a stealth build as well, and be able to pull some stealth aspects to use as well. So, the goal for this build is really good with daggers, really good at stealth, can apply damage twice, and can cast sorceries, or in our case, basically intelligence-based magic, so wizard stuff. And when I say I managed to achieve every single goal that this build could possibly have, and then some, I actually did it. There are some more minor abilities that the Duchess has, like the ability to do a double dodge, and her movement speed is very, very quick, so high movement speed was also a part of this build, as well as she kind of has, like, the ability to just kind of dodge things in, like, a unique way. She has, like, a unique standing dodge with more iframes, so we've got some, you know, like, dodging and high AC in this build as well. So overall, it's a really fun and interesting build. It turned out extremely well, it gets all of the characters' abilities, and it's just powerful. So, without further ado, let's get into it, because there's a lot to talk about. Of course, we're using a dagger, we're ultra fast, and we're stealthy. We're going to be kicking things off as a rogue today. We're starting with rogue to give us access to sneak attack right off the bat. One of the benefits of having a stealthy character in Elden Ring, especially one so fast, is that they can go for backstabs a lot. Backstabs is when you go behind a character and basically get a critical hit. So, we're going to be doing some sneak attacks to kind of mimic that feature, as well as getting as many critical hits as possible, where we can, with our sneak attack. So, starting with that, we're going to gain access to simple weapons, which will give us daggers, and light armor, which is the most we're ever going to wear, because, well, let's just say this build will have some armor restrictions. So, yeah, starting off with rogue, gets a sneak attack and all the proficiencies that we could want. Speaking of proficiencies, we get to choose a lot of them, which is going to help with this build. But let's look at the ability scores. Pretty standard intelligence-based rogue here, so something like an arcane trickster. Dexterity is at 16, as it is going to be our main attacking stat, with our dagger. Strength is at 8 because we don't need it. Constitution is at 14. Duchess, out of all of the characters, is one of the ones that has some of the lowest HP in the game. Her whole thing is dodging, not getting hit. So I think Constitution at 14 is actually kind of being a bit generous here, so feel free to bump that down a little bit to maybe a 12 if you want to throw those points into something else. Wisdom and Charisma both at 10 because I didn't really want either in the 8 range for the negative modifier, but you can change those stats around if you like. For our skill proficiencies, we've got a lot to work with. I've gone with the Sage background because if you've played a bit of Elden Ring Nightreign, you'll know that Duchess, again, being one of the intelligence characters of the group, she does kind of do a little bit of study and research into the Knights and the Night Lords, and wants to learn as much as possible in order to stop the event, and this gave us Arcana and History proficiency, which I did want for this build, so I've decided to go with those. For our skill proficiencies, I've gone for acrobatics for obvious reasons. Sleight of hand, for some reason it's changed my expertise around. We'll fix that in a minute. Acrobatics, because for obvious reasons, we want to be able to jump around. Sleight of hand, again, for obvious reasons. We're also going to want to pick stealth as one of our proficiencies. Again, it's changed all of my proficiencies around. This is weird. We're going to drop persuasion, go for stealth, and throw our expertise in there. Huh. Maybe it was a respec and I missed it. But anyways, we want to have stealth proficiency and expertise in it. Obviously, we're great at stealth, and this is going to help with some stuff later. We've also got investigation that I've picked, and because we're a human, we do get to choose an extra proficiency, and I decided to go with survival today because, I don't know, I felt like it made sense for the build. Again, the whole point of Nightreign is surviving, so I thought I'd grab that as well. For your final expertise, it is kind of up to you what you want to grab. It depends on if you want what you kind of want to lean into here with your skill proficiencies. I like grabbing a sleight of hand expertise just because, again, we're a rogue and that can be really helpful, so we might as well pick that up. Right, that's level 1. At level 2 of Rogue, we're going to be able to use our cunning action to dash as a bonus action, as well as disengage. And hide. We're actually going to be using all 3 of the cunning actions here. Dash is going to be the most important, as it is going to synergize with some abilities that we're going to be getting later, as well as it's going to allow us to just be extremely quick, like the Duchess is, being able to move across entire maps in an instant, pretty much, during combat. You will have seen in the combat footage that I was basically able to attack something for massive damage, disengage, and then be so far away that they had to force a dash to just even get close to me, which is very fun. Hiding is also going to be important because we'll be able to use our hide as a bonus action to consistently get off those critical hit sneak attacks, which is going to be very, very important for getting those backstabs. I literally went for a backstab in the combat footage, which was really, really funny. Went around someone, hid, and then backstabbed with a critical hit sneak attack. Was actually very funny. And also disengage to allow us to do all of these shenanigans without having to worry. Now, with Rogue at this stage, you have a few choices for the subclass. Arcane Trickster obviously makes a ton of sense, giving you access to Mage Hand and all the wizard cantrips and spells you could probably want for this build. However, we are going to be using Wizard in this build, so I actually felt like Arcane Trickster wasn't really doing a lot for us. It gave us a little bit of extra spell slots by the time the build was finished, sure, but everything just overlapped so much that it actually kind of felt like wasted levels. Assassin also came to mind, being able to start off combat with a big Nova round of damage, being able to get guaranteed critical hits, be able to restore our action and bonus action to go for even more stuff, and being able to get advantage on attack rolls against creatures who haven't taken a turn yet at the start of combat, basically allowing us to open with big sneak attacks. And honestly, this would work. However, my very specific playstyle for this build is bonus action heavy. And while we're not going to be dual wielding today, as Duchess only uses 1 dagger, by default, we are going to be going with Thief in order to augment our playstyle. This is going to allow us to dash twice in a turn as a bonus action, making us the fastest we can be, dash and disengage in the same turn to be able to dodge away with grace, or even dash and hide or disengage and hide if we need to be able to get those critical hit backstabs. In the end, even though something like Arcane Trickster or Assassin may feel like it fits more, Thief honestly makes this playstyle work the way it does, and well, when we combine Thief with Bladesinger in a minute, you're gonna see just how awesome this can get. So I know, it's the boring power pick, but for making this build's playstyle flow correctly, it is needed. So we're gonna be using Thief today. Now, I know what you're thinking. Obviously, we go to level 4 of Rogue here, but I actually did find that the level progression of this build does work if you just want to go for the Bladesinger levels now to get them as quickly as possible. But for now, we will take a feat to improve our dexterity because it is going to be very important to this playstyle. Now we're going to multi-class out of Rogue and into Wizard. So, with Wizard, we're going to get a few things at level 1, namely some cantrips. And yes, we're going with Booming Blade. Booming Blade, obviously, it works with sneak attacks. It's very, very good with Rogue in that respect. It's going to be great for enabling some aspects of this playstyle, but here's the lore reason. In Elden Ring, sorceries do magic damage. It's kind of hard to put a kind of element to it. Most people, I think, would say force, but force is coded slightly differently than what I see Elden Ring's magic as. And so I felt like thunder also worked as a good substitute for what is basically basic magic damage. So thunder or force works, and we're going to be using both here. What Booming Blade is going to allow us to do is eventually get the retake feature that we're after. Because not only does Booming Blade trigger damage later when the enemy moves, which kind of feels like retake, it's also going to stack with some other equipment and abilities that we're going to get later, but it's also going to make us get that kind of repeating damage ability. So honestly, it feels like the best choice for this build overall. We're also going to grab friends, so that if you do end up playing this build as the face of the party, you do have a bit more to do with your charisma. And for your final spell, it's entirely up to you. I might grab Mage Hand here just because it is a good spell overall, but you can pick something else if you like. Anyways, moving on to our spell choices. For my first spell of this build, of course, we're going to grab Shield. We can basically have this functionally be a dodge for us, instantly increasing our armor class, so it makes sense. We're also going to be grabbing Magic Missile, again for that kind of basic sorcery magic damage kind of spell. Never misses, giving us a powerful ranged option, so we can just deal force damage pretty much whenever we like, and it could be useful in a pinch. We're also going to be grabbing Thunder Wave as well, just to give us an option to push enemies away from us if we so need to. And then we're going to grab Longstrider, Enhanced Sleep, and Featherfall. Longstrider obviously to give us even more movement speed, Enhanced Sleep to increase our ability to move across the map as we need to, being able to jump over buildings. All of the Elden Ring Nightreign characters have an amazing jumping ability, being able to climb up pretty much any vertical surface, as well as being able to use these Spirit Springs around the map to jump to incredible heights, and also land without taking full damage, because there's no full damage in Elden Ring Nightreign, so I feel like all of these spells make the most sense. So to start, I would probably take this, and this. There we go. A nice balance of utility and combat potential. Moving on to Wizard level 2, we're going to gain access to our subclass, and of course we're going with Bladesinging. Bladesinging is going to give us proficiency in performance, as well as light armor, and we can choose to have proficiency with daggers, sickles, short swords, rapier, scimitars, and longswords. And we get to pick a Bladesinger weapon from that list. Of course, we'll go with a dagger. So, that gives us a dagger as part of our subclass, however, we will obviously be upgrading this dagger a bit later. We're also going to get access to some more spells, and this is where I'm going to get into some kind of specific Elden Ring and kind of Souls game mechanics. Another intelligence-based magic that is associated with, you know, sorceries and intelligence casting is Frostbite. So ice-based magic and ice-based weaponry. And what you can do in Elden Ring and Nightreign is, if you attack enough times with a frost weapon or a frost spell, you can inflict a frostbite condition. So I feel like which is really good on Duchess, because with her multi-hitting attacks from her dagger, you can proc status effects like frostbite or even bleed, which we'll talk about later, really, really easily. So with frostbite, we can grab Ice Knife to kind of get some of that frost magic kind of feeling. Also, it kind of feels like we're throwing a dagger in a sense, so it feels kind of fun. As for your last spell, it's entirely up to you what you would want to grab. I would have said Expeditious Retreat, but obviously we can already dash as a bonus action, so this last one is kind of up to you. Honestly, pick your favourite. What do I think would work? We can just grab Chromatic Orb for a multitude of different options and weapon spell damage. And yeah, I'm going to grab Longstrider. Moving on to Wizard level 3, we gain access to level 2 spells, and you have a few options here. It's entirely up to you really what you want to pick though. Like I said, Blur can work really well if you want to kind of flavour that as being able to dodge a bit better. We are going to be grabbing Invisibility at this stage, so we get like an earlier version of our ultimate ability, which allows us to turn invisible to escape aggro, which obviously we want to be able to do with this build as well. Misty Step would make sense. I mean, obviously you could just flavour it as travelling really, really fast, but honestly, I kind of just like the fact that we can just dash across the map even more than this, and that doesn't take up a spell slot, so I don't think we need Misty Step here. I actually did take Mirror Image just to give us a bit more AC for when we want it, and we can also kind of flavour it as we're using that similar kind of illusion magic to kind of make duplicates of ourselves, which isn't really what Duchess does, but hey, you know, it's free AC, might as well take it. At Wizard level 4, we're going to gain access to another cantrip, and keeping on the Frostbite theme, we can grab Ray of Frost, which also impedes our enemy's movement speed. We can be really fast, and we even slow them down. Feels pretty good. We also get to take some more spells at this point, and keeping on with the thunder theme, we can actually grab Shatter, just to give us another kind of thunder-based attack, which can feel like we're exploding an enemy for a big bout of latent damage, so maybe it has a bit of flavouring and retake, but honestly, there's not many spell options here that kind of fit on theme. Because technically Duchess can equip any spell casting kind of device, allowing her to use pretty much any of the spells available in the game, so really you do have complete free choice over what you want to choose here, so it's entirely up to you. I'll grab Misty Step just in case, since it is a powerful utility spell, but I'm not really going to have it equipped. We can grab you, and yeah, pretty good. Now, we also do get to choose our second feat of the build, and at this point we're going to bump up our intelligence to help improve all of our spellcasting. At Wizard level 5, we're going to get an extra Bladesong charge, allowing us to use Bladesong a bit more, which I just realised I completely forgot to talk about at the start of this build. Bladesong allows you to enter a Bladesong which will give you a boost to your AC, your concentration saving throws, and your movement speed. There you go. You also get to build up Bladesong charges by either attacking with your weapon or healing, or casting damaging spells, to build up 2 different types of charges. One will heal you when you activate Bladesong Climax, and one will deal extra damage when you activate Bladesong Climax, and if you have both, you can do both. There you go. That's Bladesong. I totally forgot to talk about one of the most important features of this build. Whoops. But anyways, at this level, we are going to gain access to level 3 spells, and we get access to one of the most important ones, Haste. Yes, we're absolutely using Haste on this one. We get to increase our movement speed, increase our armor class, gain an additional action. Like, it's literally everything we want to do. We're going to be able to make a massive flurry of attacks with our extra attack that we're going to grab from the next level of Bladesinger Wizard. Plus this, we're going to be able to weave in spell casting, dodging, dashing, and attacking with our dagger in quick succession all around. It's going to feel very, very powerful. We also do get to choose another spell here, and I actually like going with Slow, because if you feel like Haste isn't really going to work in a situation you're too worried about dropping concentration, then Slow is another good option, because instead of making just yourself fast, you can make all of your enemies slower, which by extension also makes you faster. Kind of makes you think, doesn't it? Anyways, we do get to prepare another spell at this point, and I'm absolutely grabbing Haste. At Wizard level 6, we're going to get extra attack, allowing us to use extra attack. Combining this with Haste means that we're going to be able to deal a massive amount of damage with just our weapon attacks in a single turn. We also are going to get to choose some more spells at this point, and we might as well just take the bog standard counter spell, since it's an overall powerful option. And for your last spell, again, it's really up to you. We kind of already have everything that I would explicitly want for this build, so really it's entirely up to you. Just grab whatever feels fun. I don't know, Glyph of Warding, just whatever you like, really. At Wizard level 7, though, this is where we're going to get our ultimate ability, the ability to turn ourselves, or our allies if we so choose, invisible, with greater invisibility. We get to turn ourselves invisible. Attacks against us will have disadvantage, and we attack with advantage. We get to keep up our invisibility as long as we continue to pass increasingly difficult stealth checks. But however, we have expertise in stealth, meaning that we're likely to get off a multitude of attacks before it even breaks, so of course we get to take advantage of the ultimate ability, where we can just attack without being aggroed against. So, greater invisibility, especially even though it's obtained a bit later into the build, it's our ultimate ability, so it feels like it just ties the playstyle together at the very end. But of course, you can grab this way earlier. I would say you can actually do the Bladesinger levels first before Rogue, if you so choose. It's entirely up to you. And for our final spell, I mean, it's entirely up to you what you want to grab here. We kind of have everything that I would want for this build, so we could just grab Ice Storm, just as another big damage option for us. And I would say, let's prepare greater invisibility. Now, at this point, you could go to Wizard level 8 for the extra feats. However, I felt like our dexterity, intelligence, all of our stats actually fit this build quite well. And while there are a bunch of feats you could take, mobile you could take, but honestly it just feels like overkill. You could grab Spell Sniper if you want to have a bigger chance to do critical hits with your spells, Tough or Warcaster for HP if you want a bit more of that. There's so many things. Alert could be good. Like, you have a lot of options available to you. Defensive Duelist if you really want to flavor that as a dodge as well. But is it just me? I don't feel like Defensive Duelist works very much. That might just be me. I don't know. But I've never actually really had it trigger that much. And we have a lot of reaction-based stuff in this build, so I don't really want to use Defensive Duelist here. So I actually found that this extra feat and the extra spells that we can get here didn't really help the build out too much. So we're actually going to jump back over to Rogue and get Uncanny Dodge. There you go, another dodge ability. Once per round, I think I've said this is once per short rest in the past, I was wrong. It's once per round, you can actually reduce the damage you take by half. So on the off chance you do get hit, you're still going to be quite tanky. But this might be the buggiest feature in the game. If you look at the wiki page for this ability, if you go to the Baldur's Gate 3 wiki, which I always have linked in the description for the armor stuff, so feel free to check it out there, not only does this actually not consume your reaction, it consumes the reaction of the person attacking you. It does require your reaction to be available to use, but it doesn't consume it. There's a lot of weird stuff going on, but let's just say this is already a really strong ability, and technically right now it's even stronger than it should be, so until Larian fixes it, take advantage, if they ever do. But yeah, I feel like the 5th level of Rogue, oddly enough, benefits this build more than the 8th level of Wizard, which may seem strange to all of you. Feel free to change that up, but I will stand by my beliefs. Being level 5 in Rogue also does push up our sneak attack to the next level, being 3d6 now, and of course, since the bag stat critical hits were a big thing for this build, I wanted to make sure that we got the highest sneak attack that felt reasonable. And that is the build. Overall, what you're going to be getting out of this is an extremely offensive character. Not only do you have access to Booming Blade, which can trigger your sneak attack, dealing 2d8 thunder damage on your hit, and an extra 3 to 24 thunder damage when the enemy tries to move, again, being the retake feature, plus being able to mix this with Blade Song for the increased defense and such like that. I'll activate it now, just so you guys can kind of see the AC that we'll be working here before Haste. So with Haste and Blade Song up, you are looking at a 21 in AC. Let me just make sure we have the correct weapon equipped. There we go. And look, the pose is really cool and all that. And we also have access to powerful sneak attacks, like we can do a lot of damage with that. We've got, movement options. Like I say, we've got haste, dash, disengage. We've got greater invisibility for the stealth stuff. We've got ways to increase our AC even further with mirror image if we want. And we have, just all the movement options in the game. So we're fast, we're able to apply powerful buffs to ourselves, and be able to just dish out massive amounts of damage each turn. Again, with our dagger attacks and haste and all that, it's going to feel very, very potent to use this ability set. But for now, let's have a look at the equipment to see how this build really comes together. So, first off, our dagger of choice for the endgame is the Rhapsody. Now, this is chosen for a number of reasons. Number one, you gain a +1 bonus to attack rolls damage and spell save DC for every foe you slay, up to a maximum of +3. So, it's one of the only daggers in the game that affects both our spellcasting and our attacking. So for Duchess, it makes a ton of sense. Not only this, but when you can also possibly inflict the bleeding condition. For those of you who have played Elden Ring and or Nightreign know, bleed is a very powerful status condition, able to chunk enemies for huge amounts of damage. And again, because Duchess does a lot of attacks in a short span of time, she can build up status ailments really quickly, so you proc bleed a lot if you decide to use it with her on a dagger. So having a dagger that can inflict bleeding stays true to Elden Ring. As well as when hitting a creature with this weapon while hiding or... So basically you have to be hiding or invisible to inflict the bleeding, but of course we can be invisible, so this works for us. It's also a +1 weapon at base, but obviously it can become a maximum of a +4 weapon. In my testing I also had this buffed with the Drakethroat Glaive to deal extra thunder damage, which for some reason has disappeared even though I cast it with a different character. Oh well, but so this could be a +5 dagger with an extra 1d4 of an element of your choice. I would choose either cold or thunder to stay on the theme, with all of these extra abilities. You also can expend your Scarlet Remittance to do extra things as well, but I think just keeping the buff makes the most sense. So the Rhapsody feels like the best option for the late game. However, there are other options. In the early game, grab the Hunter's Dagger, making it so that an enemy will become ruptured if they fail a con save after being hit with the weapon, meaning that they'll take 1d4 piercing damage whenever they move, so a bit similar to Booming Blade except it's piercing damage, but each time they do move, they reduce the condition's duration by 1. So this can also kind of be a light version of the retake feature, which can stack on and be a fun weapon in the early game. But in the late game, you can either go for Dollar Amorous, giving your critical hits more damage, or if you're really at the late game, you can grab the Crimson Dagger, which is named differently. I don't know why, it's because of the mod I used to add weapons. This also this basically reduces your critical hit threshold by 1, stacking with other abilities that do the same thing, so you roll a crit on a 19 or higher. Comes with an extra d4 of necrotic damage, is a +2 weapon, and creatures hit while this weapon is in your main hand will receive vulnerability to piercing damage, meaning that all of your dagger attacks will do double damage. You can wield this in the offhand if you want for the most power possible, but really you don't need to. Again, Duchess is known for only using a single dagger, so it makes sense to stick with that for the build, but you obviously can do the dual wielding thing if you want. But yeah, a bunch of solid options here for your weapon. You don't need a ranged weapon on this build because it's not really Duchess's MO. Whoops, gonna get that mistake a couple of times. But the Deadshot will also give you that critical hit threshold reduction, which works for us. We might as well take advantage of it. So yeah, this will just help us get even more critical hit backstabs. And speaking of, we also have the Covert Cowl. While obscured, the number you need to roll a critical hit while attacking is reduced by 1. So if we're invisible or standing in darkness, or at least the shade, we will be able to increase our critical hit threshold. So already we crit on an 18 or higher. Combining this with the ability to hide as a bonus action and the Shade Slayer Cloak, making it so that while hiding, we will now crit on a total of a 17 or higher. Well, yeah, this is how we're getting the backstabs. We go invisible or step into a darker area, go behind the enemy, and then backstab them while hiding, because by going behind them, we are removed from their cone of vision, meaning that we can actually hide, which is awesome. Moving on to our armor choice, we have the Elegant Studded Leather, giving us a +2 bonus to initiative rolls and advantage on stealth checks. That advantage on stealth checks being important for maintaining greater invisibility, because this build's biggest weakness is that it only has one level 4 spell slot. If you want to change that, go for Arcane Trickster instead of Thief. But with this, we'll be able to stay in that greater invisibility for as long as possible. With our expertise in stealth and 18 in dexterity and advantage on the checks, we're going to do a pretty damn good job of maintaining that power. It's also going to give us access to shield once per short rest, so again, we kind of get that extra dodge feature as well. However, in the early game, grab the Spider Silk Armour for a +1 bonus to stealth checks and advantage on Constitution saving throws, or in the late game, you can also pick up the Ballist Armour, making enemies within 3 meters vulnerable to piercing damage, making sure they take double damage from our dagger attacks, but unless they are immune to it, it doesn't work. Except that's not actually how this works. For some reason, the Ballist Armour still applies the vulnerability to piercing damage, even if the enemy is already resistant or immune, which is hilarious. So yeah, that works. This also gives you a +2 bonus to initiative rolls as well. Now, for the gloves, we have got the Gloves of Belligerent Skies. Whenever we deal thunder damage, which we'll be doing a lot with this build, we can inflict Reverberation on the target. Reverberation will apply a penalty to physical saving throws for every turn it has remaining, and when they have 5 or more turns of Reverberation, they'll take an extra d4 of thunder damage and possibly fall prone. So obviously, this lingering thunder damage that will exist after Booming Blade goes off, or maybe even our Drakethroat Glaive buffed thunder attacks, will trigger Reverberation, meaning that we're getting that retake skill where we deal damage again over and over and over, repeatedly. So we're able to basically abuse the retake feature, which if you played Nightreign, you can also do. But the crazy thing is this is also really cool. The being knocked prone part actually fits Elden Ring perfectly as well, because Duchess does so many attacks, she's able to break enemies stagger quite a lot, which causes them to fall down and be vulnerable to a critical hit. And because prone in this game, falling down, means that they have advantage on the attack rolls against them, then you can sneak attack off of that advantage. I'm just saying, it's literally the mechanic 1-to-1. We can basically attack with Booming Blade, inflict Reverberation, and Booming Blade's, own passive ability to deal damage when they move away with Disengage and Dash, then they're forced to come after us, taking all of that extra damage and possibly falling prone as well, opening them up to a critical hit stab with a sneak attack. I just want to say I'm a genius. I know it seems like an obvious combination now that we're actually looking at it, but thinking about how this actually reflects the Elden Ring mechanics at the time of making this build, I felt very clever. Now, we also get to combine this with the Linebreaker Boots, giving us a reason to go so fast. Once per turn, when you dash, you gain Wrath for 2 turns. For every stack of Wrath, so every turn remaining, you gain an additional +1 bonus to damage with melee weapons for each turn. But again, as you all know if you've watched this channel long enough, the Linebreaker Boots are broken. They actually give you 3 stacks of Wrath per usage, per dash, and it's not once per turn limited. So, by using our 2 bonus action dashes right away, not only giving us a ton of movement speed to either close distance or get away, we get an immediate +6 to our damage. which is insane. So being able to weave in dashes and being really, really fast not only just fits the build thematically, it also makes us stronger. And combining that with all of the extra damage we'll be dealing, well, that's a lot of damage. I mean, there's nothing else really to say to that. Moving on to our accessories, you can kind of use any necklace that you want. I just picked the Psychic Spark because it gives us a bit of a stronger magic missile. So again, we have that powerful ranged option. But really, any necklace will work here that you want to use, so honestly, pick your favorite. This was just kind of a throwaway pick, I'm not gonna lie, nothing else really fit the build. I would say keep the Amulet of Spell Slot Restoration in your back pocket for this build, the Spellcrux Amulet, to give you a second level 4 spell slot per long rest if you want to use that Greater Invisibility strat twice without needing to use a long rest. But otherwise, any amulet works, Psychic Spark works for me. Now, the Ring of Elemental Infusion is also really cool. Whenever we deal thunder damage, in our case with a cantrip, that element will infuse our weapon, allowing us to use Booming Blade and then give our next attack immediately after an extra 1d4 of thunder damage. Again, retake happening once again. It's more thunder damage after we already did thunder damage. It's that back in time thing. I absolutely love it. And because it's thunder damage added on, it also triggers reverberation, so there's a chance to do even more damage off of that and more chances to knock the enemy prone. Like, this probably is the best build for the Ring of Elemental Infusion by far, and I haven't got to use it in a while, so it's nice to bring it back. And finally, the Ring of Spiteful Thunder. Whenever the wearer deals thunder damage to a creature that is reverberating, so they have the reverberation condition on them, that creature can become dazed if it fails a con save, meaning that they'll have disadvantage on wisdom saves, cannot take reactions, and lose the dexterity bonus from their armor class. So overall, it's a pretty nasty buff, and with the amount of attacks that we'll be doing in a turn that will all deal thunder damage, this procs a lot. And of course, this means you can lay down control spells on the target, or your allies can, really, really easily, and then it just becomes easier for you and all your allies to hit them on subsequent turns. And again, because we attack so many times in a turn, this just basically guarantees that our future attacks will hit as well by lowering that armor class. It just works so bloody well. So yeah, as for how I got the look for this build, which was about as close to Duchess as I could manage, we are using Fia Taylor's Camp Clothing mod once again. Finally decided to bring that back. We've got the doublet, which I've coloured in the Karsus dye to give us this blue and blackish kind of look. We've got the leather boots as well, coloured in muddy brown from the vanilla game, and the cloak as well in the underwear slot, also coloured in that same Karsus dye to give us this overall look. The hair and face mods, I apologize, I forget the exact name, but they are just popular hair and face mods that are on the mod.io page, which is available on all platforms, so you can just grab it there and you'll get this general look. Couldn't get the blindfold, unfortunately. Only real regret of this build, but otherwise I still think I did a pretty solid job recreating the Duchess's look overall for the limited tools that I have. So yeah, overall that is the build, and let me just say, this is one of my favourite new builds. Anything involving Bladesinger you already know is going to be good, but the fact that I was able to almost one-to-one recreate the mechanics of the Duchess character from Nightreign in Baldur's Gate 3, I've got to admit, I know it's gloating, and I know I sound like a total what-name when I say this, but it feels awesome. I feel really, really clever for seeing all these mechanics and just thinking, that works. Again, the idea of attacking and then having a delayed repeat of the damage that you deal in the form of like reverberation and booming blade honestly feels amazing. And combining that with the ability to use so many different spells and blade song and the movement speed and haste just to become this absolute insane character, being able to also stack our critical hit chance as well, being able to critical hit if everything is done right on a 17 or higher for massive damage, booming blade sneak attacks, just oh, it feels amazing. And again, for those of you who haven't played Nightreign, if you're looking for a decent roguelike, give it a try. If you like the Souls games, you're likely going to like this one, although I understand it's not for everybody. And for those of you who have played Nightreign and know about the other characters that exist, let me know if you want me to try making more builds based on the playable characters. I've got interesting ideas for someone like Revenant, even Wilder actually. I kind of know how to get the grappling hook, which could be quite fun. So yeah, feel free to let me know if you want to see those things play out. Otherwise, keep an eye out for me on my friends' streams like Red and Chaos, because honestly, I've been playing Elden Ring, Nightreign a lot, and they are also playing the game, or at least planning to. So if you ever see one of them streaming Nightreign, I'm likely there as well. So come and say hi. Right, that is going to do it for me. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.